Hey there, how are you? This is Pam, and I am getting ready to record the first episode of our second season of the Cash Flow podcast. So, I wanted to invite you to join me live because the teaching or the discussion is going to be just as valuable to you on Facebook as it is on the podcast. So, wanted to have you join me, and you'll kind of see the guts of what we do behind the scenes here. And eventually, right now, you're just going to see me. Sorry about that. But eventually, we're going to get a couple cameras set up here, and you'll be able to see a little bit of the behind the scenes. So, welcome aboard and enjoy today's podcast, which is season one or episode one, likely to be episode one of the new season, which will launch in September. Welcome aboard. Got a little water before I start. And we will go to three, two. Hi, and welcome back to season two of the Cash Flow Podcast. I'm so glad to have you here as we continue to discuss for entrepreneurs what makes the difference between a successful business and one of the 99 out of 100 or 90 out of 100, whichever statistic you choose to listen to, doesn't make it. How do you get yourself to stand apart as an entrepreneur and a business person from the folks who don't make it? And one of the key things, if not the most significant thing about how to make that happen, is cash. So we're going to talk about that. And in today's episode, we're going to go very specifically through the different levels of activities you can do as your business starts to grow. From I'm starting from zero, I have an idea and no money, all the way up to, hey, now I'm a 7 or 8 figure dollar business cranking out a lot of cash. And I'm going to be very touch on each one of those levels lightly today, just to talk about what you really want to make sure you have in place depending on where you are on that 6 level spectrum that we're going to go through here. So we're going to talk about a business that's at zero. We're going to go through what happens while it's in the 6 figure stages. There are 3 or 4 stages there. And then the final stage is once you're up over a 7 figure revenue business and profitable. So stick with me here. Figure out where you are on this continuum, and let's get the right things in place for you so that you're the one that emerges on to the next level. So let's start out with businesses. And I know there are some of you out there listening to this who are very much like I was 2 years ago, and that is starting a business from nothing. And you have to decide what cash you're going to get and use to start the business, because quite frankly, this is the thing that determines whether you are still doing sort of a hobby or whether you're really launching a business. And there's one thing that sets those two things apart. Well, there are a number of things that set those two things apart, but one in particular, and this is one I tell every single business owner I talk to: you really do want to establish a business checking account, okay? And it's important to do that because it makes that clear distinction for you. There are all sorts of ancillary benefits, but right off the bat, the biggest benefit you get from that is you clearly establish the business as a business and you as a business owner. It takes it and it separates it out of your personal account. If you're like a lot of folks that I talk to, you are running your business out of your personal account, and inside that account all sorts of stuff is happening. There is you're using cash to go to a course, you're using cash to build out your marketing, you're using that cash to pay your grocery bill. And there's really no easy way to go in unless you go in at the very end of the year and spend that full 2 or 3 days that we know a lot of people do, just tearing apart every item on their bank statement, their personal bank statement, to figure out what's tax deductible and what's not. So the really cool thing is, if you have a separate business account and you truly do your business transactions out of that account, even if you have to fund it with personal money. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean you don't have access to your personal funds. It just means we're setting up a very clear distinction between what's personal and what's business. Once you do that, the hugest advantage to you, if you're a starter entrepreneur who's been through the first tax season, is all of your stuff is captured in that one checking account. And the really cool thing about that, not only does it handle your taxes in the first year. But we'll talk about in this podcast in future episodes about how that really sets you up to do very easy bookkeeping, either yourself or to have a bookkeeper do it. And in doing that very easy bookkeeping, you now start to get a whole bunch of information about your business and how it's performing, which is always a huge advantage to a business owner, right? If you're a business owner, the more relevant information you have, not just any information, but the more relevant information you have at any point in time where you have to make a decision, and we certainly know as entrepreneurs we're making decisions all day. That's what our day is made up of. The more relevant information you have about making those decisions, the better off you're going to be. And in fact, I'm making one right now. So I have to decide whether to invest in a particular coaching group, coaching plan. And I know I need to do it. I know it's a good investment for my business. But what I said when I was talking to the folks who offer this is, okay, I need to go back and look at my forecast for the business and decide, is it time, when is the right time to make this investment for me? And all of the things that matter, I know I'm going to get a return on that investment. There's no question. But I have to know what my cash flow availability is in order to make that upfront investment. And the only way I can know that and make those kind of decisions is if I've started with a business bank account. So step one is set up that business bank account. The other thing it does is it sits you into your what's the word I'm looking for here? Your purpose as an entrepreneur. It sets you apart as somebody who's doing something as a business owner. You're not just kind of dabbling and trying to earn some money on the side. There is nothing wrong with that. And if that's where you are, if you're a consultant and you really are not looking to build a business, you're just looking to get some extra money into the household budget, that's a whole different thing. And there's no judgment on that at all. I certainly did that for a couple of years and it was awesome. I'm in a different position now and I decided I'm setting up a business. And the very first thing I did was set up a business checking account. So put that on your list to do. There's a little bit of work, but not a lot, right? You just have to register your business with whatever state you're doing business in. And you're going to find that that's so much easier than you may think it is, right? You go on the business website, which is usually something like Business and Commerce on the government site for your state. Excuse me while I clear my throat here. And there's, for most states, a very easy process to step through and get your business set up with them. And then there's a small registration fee annually to keep it set up. But let me tell you, if you're one of the people that doesn't want to go through that mess, there are companies out there and you can look them up online. Just, do a Google query on setting up my business and you'll get ads at the top of your Google query for companies who will take care of all that for you for a small fee. So you'll still have to pay your registration fee and give them the information they need, but they'll handle all the filing with the state so that you don't have to go through that hassle. But I'll tell you, I'm registered in Pennsylvania as a business, and it took me, I think, a grand total of 10 minutes, and I had to wait a week, I think it was, to get my business information back. So you do have to have that done before you walk into most banks and say, I want to set up a business checking account. But let's move on to level 2 now. So that's level 1. You've just started your business, and I'm suggesting even if you have $10 in that business account, go ahead and set that up. Because if you're seriously ready to start your business, you're seriously ready to start spending money and making money, frankly. And so you want to then transfer some money wherever it's coming from for you. In a lot of cases with businesses, in mine, it was coming from some savings and a little bit of credit. And so you want to make sure that you use a separate checking account to put that cash into. And then you've captured that information separately. Your tax accountant has everything they need to do that first year's tax return. And quite frankly, it's even so straightforward if you have your own business checking account that you can do your own taxes that first year, most likely, without a lot of hassle. So if you've ever been through that weekend of sheer frustration and pulling your hair out as you're looking back through your personal bank statements going, was that a business lunch? Was that not a business lunch? Where's the receipt for that? Do I need to keep the receipt for that? Oh my God, what did I spend all that money at Walmart on? Was it for business or was it for my kids' school clothes? It takes all of that out of the picture, and you just hand your tax accountant or yourself one big set of bank transactions and say, that's all business related. Sort it. Makes life so much easier. Okay, so that's level one. Let's get that business checking account set up. I know I've convinced you now. Okay, so let's go out and do that. That is step one towards making finance fun in your business. Remember, finance is something that we don't want to avoid and be scared of. I know way down in your soul, you know that. And our job here with the Cash Flow Podcast is to get you to the point where you're actually saying finance is fun. And I will tell you, I've had entrepreneurs at every single level, from just starting out, literally no money at all and in debt, all the way up to 8-figure entrepreneurs who are just socking cash away. And every single one of them, after we've worked together a little bit and I show them the couple of things you need to put in place to get the sort of the foundation set, have said, oh, you know what? Finance is fun. I know so much more now about my business. So thank you for that. And for the $0 entrepreneur, it's knowing when they're going to get money. And for the 8-figure entrepreneur, it's knowing what to do with that money with confidence. Because the problems don't go away when you become an 8-figure entrepreneur. Believe me, the sleepless nights actually get a lot worse because there's so much more at stake. But having the information in place, starting with what I'm covering today, is going to make such a difference in your life. And you'll be able to be one of those entrepreneurs that walks around saying, hey, finance really is fun. I can use it to run my business. It's not just this set of arbitrary numbers that make no sense. So you're going to hear me say that a lot in this podcast, which is finance is fun, because I think it is. But what we're talking about today is just getting the foundation set up. So level one, you're just starting out. Let's establish you as a real business and get that business account set up, okay? All right, so level two now, you're making a little bit of money, probably not a ton at this point, $50,000, $100,000 a year on, annualized. So, say you're bringing in $4,000 or $5,000 a month, and you want to grow. Nobody kind of wants to be stuck once you've established yourself as a business at, $100,000 or less. But you also know that in order to grow, you're going to need to invest in some things. So here's the point at which you get benefit number one of having set up that business checking account. Now at that same bank, because you have your cash account there, you can set up a business credit card. So setting up a business credit card then gives you access to, it does a couple things, but the most immediate thing is it gives you access to cash that you don't have yet. Now, one of the things that's a little dangerous here is that you can spend it before you know what you've spent it on. We're going to move our way through that as we get through the additional levels. But for starters, it just gives you a little bit of a springboard, a little bit of a safety net for making sure that you can invest just a little bit ahead of growth. And that's an important statement. If you talk to any of the entrepreneurs and a number of clients that are in this stage of 7 and 8 figures, and they're internet personalities, and they've built businesses where they have 15, 20 people in place now. And what they will tell you is at every stage of their growth, they've had to invest money ahead of the income coming in from that growth. And that's what this particular concept does for you. It gives you the chance to have some credit you can call on in order to invest in that growth. Now, you want to invest it wisely, but it is something you want to have available to yourself. The other thing it starts to do is establish a little credit for your business. Now, I'm going to tell you a sad truth about this first business credit card. And the first business credit card, they're actually going to be looking at and pulling on your personal credit, right? You haven't really been established as a business long enough for them to look at the history and say, yeah, okay, we can give you credit for $20,000 or $30,000. Instead, they're going to check your personal credit and give you what will be available to you based on your personal credit. But one more big word of caution: don't use this card for personal stuff. Same reasons as the checking account, okay? If you just use it for business stuff and stop using your personal credit cards for business stuff, then you're going to have in one place, potentially one bank, and two accounts, your business checking account and your business credit card account, all of the information you need to know when it comes time to do taxes. But more importantly, when it comes time, when you've been with the Cash Flow podcast long enough that you know what else you can do with that information to make you a rock star entrepreneur. And I promise you, all of the rock star entrepreneurs that you know, anybody you're following on social media, anybody whose events you go to, all of those rock star entrepreneurs have figured out how to make good use of that financial information. And when they make decisions, they know exactly what impact it's going to have on their bank account. Okay? And that's what's so important, because you're setting yourself up here for level 3. All right, so level 1, we've set ourselves up a bank account, checking account. Level 2, we've set ourselves up a business credit card. We're a business. We're a real live business now. And it's not confused with and all tied up in our personal checking account. So we're a business. And the next thing we need to know, just like we need to know it in our personal lives, is so what is the balance in that checking account going to be based on what I'm doing in the next days, weeks, or months? And we're going to start this really simply with a cash flow forecast. And that sounds a lot scarier than it is, so let me break it down for you. And then I will also point you to a resource that's available. I will have to get the link for you, and we'll put it in the show notes, that can actually get you a template of this cash flow forecast and training video on how to use it. But you will find after our discussion here today that the training video is probably not even necessary. If you're comfortable in Excel, you'll be able to take everything we're talking about today and drop it right into your own cash flow forecast or the template. And I'll give you the link for that in the show notes. So here what we have is a cash flow forecast, and there are only 3 things you need to know about the cash flow forecast. And if you're very early in your business, it'll be much easier to get a hold of this information and know it than it's easier to do when you're smaller in the business than when you're larger, much larger business. We have better and bigger and more complicated tools for when the business gets larger. But for starters, here's all you need to know. You need to know what your bank balance is today. Okay, so you'll look online and say, here's my bank balance. Boom, check. You've handled thing number 1. The second thing you need to know is what you think you're going to bring in cash next week. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So we'll expand on that a little bit. And the third thing you need to know is what you're going to spend in cash next week. Okay, that's it. We start with your bank balance. We know what's going to be coming in. We know what's going to be going out. And if you think about next week, as much as people say, forecasting is just spitting in the wind or throwing spaghetti on the wall, in a lot of cases in huge corporations, like the ones I've worked in, I agree with you. Forecasting is just throwing spaghetti at the wall, and it's done for political purposes, and it turns into a nice, pretty book on your shelf and has zero meaning. That's not what we're talking about here. Here we are talking about putting in place for you a tool that you can use to make business decisions. And there's no reason that at this level in your business, once you've set up a checking account, once you've set up a credit card account, you could be at the $50,000 to $200,000 revenue level. These tools will make such a difference for you. So stick with me here while we walk through how this cash flow forecast works. And again, it's very simple, and there is more detailed instruction available. You take your beginning cash balance that you have in the bank as of today, and let's just pretend that's $1,000. And then you look at the next week ahead and say, what kind of money is going to be coming into me? So in our businesses, there are all sorts of different ways that happens. One is recurring membership revenue. I think I'm going to sell 5 more memberships, or I know that I'm going to get the recurring payment from, 5 clients who are already in my membership. Or you may be selling coaching, and you might know that you have 3 clients, but there aren't going to be any payments next week. So you're going to be adding 0 cash to your bank balance. Or you might be selling product online, training products, and you have an estimate for how many training products you sell each month or each week, rather. So it's really kind of easy when we're small. You're going to know if you're making $5,000 next week or if you're making nothing next week. And both of those things are totally legitimate forecasts. So it doesn't mean if you're not making money, you don't need to do a forecast. And that's what I really want to establish for you because a lot of businesses early on don't make money some weeks. A lot of weeks, actually, myself included, when I was just getting this thing off the ground. So it doesn't mean you have to have income coming in. It means you just need to know if it is or if it isn't. And if it is coming in, excuse me there. If it is coming in, how much is it going to be? Okay, piece of cake. So you know your bank balance, you know how much cash is coming in the door. Yeah, you've got 2 out of 3 pieces handled already. Last piece you need to know is how much cash am I going to spend next week? And it's a lot easier than you think. There are a few major categories in any business, and in smaller businesses, they're much easier to get a handle on. But you're going to have some things like, hopefully, you pay yourself maybe once every other week or so. Hopefully, you are spending some money on marketing, advertising, whatever form that's taking. You're writing a book, you're doing some Facebook ad marketing, you are investing in a business manager. Who knows what the pieces are, but you know what you're going to be spending on your marketing and advertising next week. You might have some bank fees related to your checking account. You might have a rent bill to pay if you work at a co-working space like a WeWork or something like that. But you can go through a list of what you know you're going to spend next week. Now, if you get stuck on this, don't be stuck. I've got a great hack for you. And the hack is to look at your bank statement from the last couple weeks, and you'll see all the different things that you're spending cash on. And then you can figure out which ones you're going to spend cash on next week. Okay, now here's the hardest part of a cash flow forecast. You know 3 things. You know your bank balance, you know what you're going to make next week, and you know what you're going to spend next week. The hardest part is the formula, and you've probably already figured it out. You're going to take that bank balance, you're going to add what you make. So remember, our bank balance is starting at $1,000. I know I'm going to bring in $1,500 next week, so that makes $2,500. And I know I'm going to spend $2,000 next week. So I subtract 2,000 from 2,500, and I know my ending bank balance at the end of next week will be $500. So just to run through that again very quickly, we started with 1,000, we added 1,500, we subtracted, what did I say, 2,000, and we're left with $500. That's simple. And guess what? Now you're all set up to forecast the next week. Because the first input to next week's cash flow forecast, is the beginning balance, which we know or we predict is going to be $500. So what I suggest you do is do that exercise and repeat it week over week over week. That's it. You just repeat it. So if you know what your ending bank balance is going to be at the end of week 1, you know what the starting bank balance is going to be at the beginning of week 2. And then you predict week 2's income and outflows. And you get an ending balance, and then you predict week 3's. So it's that simple. So we've just gone through stages 1, 2, and 3 of business ownership, and 3 things that when you do them, so first of all, you set up your business checking account. That's once and done. You set up your business credit card account. That's once and done. And then I suggest you set this cash flow forecast up and maintain it. And I promise you, that is no more than 10 minutes a week. That's it. 10 minutes a week tops is what it'll take to keep that. But think about the gift you get there, right? If you put that 10 minutes in each week, you're going to be able to look, and I suggest you go 12 or 13 weeks out. It's not going to be perfectly accurate, but it's going to be a really good guide for you, and you will be amazed at the clarity it starts to bring to your decisions. Amazed. Instead of just this haze of gray, I don't know if I'm going to have enough money, all of a sudden on one piece of paper, you can say, I will or I won't have enough money. And even more importantly, if you do look at that and go, I won't have enough money, you know exactly what things are driving whether or not you're going to have the money. So you can reduce expenses, you can try and increase sales, you can play with things a little bit and start to really take ownership of your decision process instead of just kind of going, I might make a little bit of money next week, so I'm going to go ahead and spend. So there's so much value to what is a 10-minute exercise every week. So I really, really encourage you to do that. And this is the level that we really dove in on for this podcast because I think it's so important. And like I said, the resource is available to you in the show notes here. And for those who are watching on Facebook Live, I'll make sure that link is also in the show notes. You want to click through the book and get what's called the cash flow forecast training. And it's a fantastic tool. Walks you right through exactly what to do. Okay, now we've been through level 3. So now let's say you're a $250,000 business a year. You've got everything established, including checking account, credit card account. You know what your cash flow is going to be. It may be time to move away from that credit card, which you're probably paying some pretty high interest on, and get to a line of credit. And guess what? Now you have all of the tools in place to do that, because when you go look for a line of credit, the benefit of a line of credit, really it acts a lot like a credit card. But the cool thing is it's a much lower interest rate usually. And it also helps really establish your business credit. Okay, so think of it as a grown-up credit card. Um, and once you've got a few things in place and you've got a pretty regular revenue stream, that's when you start to have some real leverage to take advantage of money like that. And even in a small business, it's time to start looking at those options. Because if you think about it, again, if you're serious about this business and you want to grow it, even if you don't know what it is right now, there's going to be a point in time that you want to put money in and grow your business. So let's have this resource available to you. And at this point in time, when you're looking for this line of credit, what you want to do is first check with your bank, because they may be willing to do it for you. But then there are all sorts of really good organizations out there who will, for free to you, help find the best credit line option for your company and your situation. I know a couple of them, and I'll put them in the show notes with a link. But, and again, I don't take any referral fees or anything, just so you know. I just like to recommend good people to good people. So definitely level 4, if you're about the $250,000 business, let's get that line of credit set up. 2 big reasons. One is it establishes your business as a credit-worthy business for the outside world. And 2 is it gets you a much lower interest cost. And I guess there's really 3 things. It gets you a much lower interest cost. And 3, it makes sure that you're ready and have in place access to cash when you're ready to grow this business. Okay? See, we've already whipped through 4 levels of this. Level 5 and level 6 are once you get to be 500,000 to $1 million in revenue. And these are rough numbers, right? But you'll know when you start to get the point where you feel like you're not really comfortable about your finances. That's when you know you've reached the next level. Whenever things start to get a little hazy, or you feel yourself making a decision without financial confidence, that's when you know, okay, it may be time for me to move to this next level. And now at level 5, you have all your accounts set up, you've got your cash flow forecast, you know what's going on, and you've got access to funds at a really good interest rate. Now it's time to think about a full-on, full-blown forecast. Now you'll need help with this, because you certainly, as probably a right-brained entrepreneur, have no interest in sitting down and creating a full-blown forecast. But there are very good accountants, CFOs, you name it, out there who will build these out for you. It's what I do for my one-on-one clients. And what this does is it fully pulls together all of those things you hear people talk about: profit and loss statement, cash flow statement, balance sheet, and starts to make sure that your business, as an ongoing, really grown-up business now, is prepared for all of the things that are coming down the road. And I intend to do a whole show on forecasts and why a forecast. But the really short version of the why is you want to avoid the icebergs, you want to avoid the obstacles, and you want to take advantage of the opportunities. Kind of like I talk about it like the old Chutes and Ladders game. If you're old enough to know what Chutes and Ladders is, you want to make sure that you hit all of those ladders and avoid all of those chutes. And that's what a full on forecast does. So that would be level 5 when you're at about that half million to a million mark. And then the big next one is what we're all shooting for. But quite honestly, once people cross over to this point, they often don't realize it. So we need to really remind them, remind you if you're at this point that it's time to focus on this. Once your business is really making some money, there are some real decisions that have to be made about how to invest that money. Some of it you're going to want to invest back in the business. Some of it you're going to want to invest in your personal life. Some of it you're going to want to put in other investments in order to sort of balance things out. Think about it like Powerball, right? Now you've hit the mark where you've got a ton of cash. And as hard as the problems are when we have no cash, there really are still problems and opportunities, real opportunities when we do have the cash. And you want to just start to make sure you've got the team around you to make sure you're making really good, solid decisions about that cash so that it stays with you in a way that you can invest it in the things you want to invest it in. And by stay with you, I don't mean you hoard it. I don't mean you hold it to your chest. I mean that it stays with you to make the decisions about it so that you can decide how much you're going to give to charity. You can decide how much you want contributing to taxes. You can decide how much you want to put back in the business, and you can decide how much you want for your lifestyle. And that is the place where all of us want to be. And these building blocks from 1 to 6 will get you there, and you will definitely chant with me, finance is fun, when you're at that 7 level figure and your biggest decision is how do I invest this money? So let's get you set up for that. That's what this Cash Flow Podcast is all about. And we will keep talking about all the things that make finance fun. So this is Pam Pryor for now, checking out. Have a fantastic day. Thank you so, so much for listening. If this was valuable to you, please do go and like and comment on this, or subscribe and comment to this podcast. Like the Facebook Live for me. We want to get this word out as far as we can to help as many entrepreneurs as we can. It's time we make finance fun as part of business instead of just the dreaded or avoided link. Have a great day. Take care.